here it's good because you have a place to sit, so I will tell you a little bit of the history and how the garden start existing. Then we can have a look in the garden itself, and then we can walk through the other part of the garden. Yeah, you said that also the ElisaBeet history could be interesting, but perhaps I will first focus on this garden because otherwise it would be too mixed. And then afterward you could also ask questions about the organization. Like ElisaBeet is the organization who take care of the garden, and we don't have only this garden, but we have also other part of Berlin, and we have also different activities that we do related to urban gardening. But for this garden, the garden started in 2020, and as you already all see, it's in a cemetery, which is quite unusual. But the short story is that a cemetery in Germany, but in Berlin, they don't need the whole space that they have, because there is mostly two facts. The first fact is that in Berlin every year less people die, which is kind of strange, but people live longer and older people tend to move out of Berlin, so they don't die here. And the second fact is that people doesn't use less people use this big, I don't know how it's called. But use like the small one, so you use less space. So they have huge spaces that they don't use, and the problem is also that then they get less money, because here we have in a cemetery which is kind of private, like it belongs to a church, but it's not from Berlin itself. So they get only money from people who are buried here, and if there's no people anymore, they don't have money, but the space is still there and they have to maintain it. And it's huge space, so they begin like to look for a partner, to have people who take care of the space and do something else, or like something a little bit different in the places that aren't used anymore as a cemetery in a strict senses. And so it's why in 2019 they approached us, and they made a call which to use this part of the garden, and the idea was to bring community garden here. And to begin the process in 2020, we had luck, and our first appointment was in presence. It was, I think, just one month before the lockdown, but it was a very nice, with a lot of neighbors, and you could like choose a name. The name is here ElisaBeet. Yet I'm too confused. ElisaBeet, which is kind of a mixture, because the cemetery heißt ElisaBeet 2, and Beet in German is bed, so it's like kind of the cemetery and the garden together. Yes, so it's how it existed. And then we have several online participating day, and we end up with like a plan for the whole area. The main idea was to have here the main part, and the part which is the most intense, with the most intense views, and it's the garden part. And here it was never a part of the cemetery, like it was a part of the cemetery, but only the compost were here. So there was, I think, 3 or 4 huge, really huge amount of compost here. So the first task was that the compost should be moved somewhere else. And for those who come from this entrance, you probably walk past the compost area, which is still really small in comparison to what it was here, because here it was the compost from many, many years. I don't know how many, but I think it was 5 times the amount they have here. So it was the first part. And then the intensity of the utilization of this space is from here to the supermarket. Like the building we see there it's a supermarket, and it's less and less. At the end we have like a wild garden, but I can't tell you more about that later when we walk through. Yeah, so it's like for the first how the garden exists and since when. So we are quite new. It's only 2020. We begin in the summer because it was quite long to do all these participatory activities online. But we were very happy that it did work and that people also was really wanted really like to participate online. It was also like the advantage that it was on the beginning, and not all people thought it was really boring to do something online, but they are, woo, we can do something. So it was really nice. And our first activity was, there was a lot of people. The first who took place here, and it was like to clean the surface, because sadly the compost of the cemetery is not really only organic matters, but there is a lot of plastic, because I think it's not separated really well. And for example, we found a lot of plastic flowers in the compost, which is a flower, but a plastic flower, it doesn't go in the compost. So it was like the first step, and it was plastic like on like quite a huge amount of soil. Yeah, and then we also brought more soil, and it's also why you see that we planted on small beds in the middle, and where you walk, we didn't add soil. It was also because it's cheaper, like to only put soil where we really want to plant something, and not where we only want to walk, because then it doesn't make sense. Yes, so it's for the garden, and I think I've talked already a lot. I don't know if you have questions. And otherwise I would suggest that we also walk together through the garden, and I will show you the infrastructure and also small story about each piece of thing that's here. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
What is the legal situation now? Yeah.
The legal situation is that we have a contract for 5 years. I think it's begin last year, so for the next 5 years. And it's also due to we get not we, but the cemetery administration gets money from the Berlin Senate to build like this alternative use. And so we have money like to build the garden in the first place, and there is also like kind of a protection rule when you use public money to build something, then the something has to stay like for quite an amount of time, and so it's like a rule that the garden should exist for at least 5 years, and so it's also why we have the contract for the next 5 years. But our relationship, and we work really well with the cemetery administration. It's really nice to work with them. And so we planned like to have a prolongation So we are not worried that in 5 years they told us that they don't want the garden here anymore. And we don't pay for the surfaces. We take care of the place, so they don't have to do it themselves.
And by we you mean like a team of people that so a group of people are maintaining the gardens, or is it also like open for the community around and people can also contribute? How does it work in terms of maintaining it?
In terms of maintaining the Himmelbeet, have also a lot of ÖVFDler, like there is a few, and they also come and help here. But we want to do it with the neighborhood, so we have on every Friday, we have on the whole afternoon, we have an organized maintain action where the neighborhood is invitated and where we do the things together. But we are more often here than only on Friday, and it's also always open, so if you want to come and help, you can also like there is like a medium group of voluntary people who engage them more than only on Friday, and they have a group and they come and they know, okay, I can't do something with the tomato, or I can come here and water the plant on Thursday, or I don't know, and they organize themselves like with the help of the Himmelbeet, but without the neighborhood and all these voluntary people, like we are not doing all the job. It would be impossible.
But do you have employed staff, or is it just the ecological volunteers?
No, we have also employee staff here. We have one, I don't know, garden master, which is taking care of here and also of the other of our other garden. And we have also another person which is helping him. And then I think two times a week the ecological voluntary are coming here.
So maybe to explain this shortly, there are two programs of ecological volunteering. You heard that Rahma and Antonia are eco-volunteers with Changing Cities, so they spend a year with Changing Cities, get a a very small amount of money from the Berlin Senate, and we as Changing City as the organization pays just a fee for the educational part of this year. They have some trainings, and this is for people up to 25, I guess, and then for people older than 25, also for people on pension, there's also a way of engaging for a year as social or ecological volunteers, and they also get a small compensation for their work, but that means they are basically something like full-time or a little less or more. Yeah, I mean, it's volunteering, so it's yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that any of our voluntary is full-time here, but
Yeah.
yes.
And the harvest, I mean how do you call them? Obst und Gemüse. Do they who uses the harvest of the garden?
Like the voluntary person, not this official ecological voluntary, but all people of the neighborhood who come and help can also have part of the harvest for free. And if we have more than what people want, which happen quite a lot in autumn, for example, where there is all of the harvest at one time, and nobody wants to have 10 zucchini for 2 days and 2 persons. Then we also give it for Spende or
Donation.
Food sharing, yeah.
So you can also harvest, and we are happy if people give us a small donation.
The way you obtained this garden wasn't an individual task that you just negotiated with the cemetery and then with the city corporate. I mean, how did you sign the contract? Was it a negotiation only with you, association, and the cemetery, or the city corps also involved?
No, the city council wasn't involved because here it's a private place. It's all belong to the cemetery administration. And as I said, we didn't ask the cemetery, but it was the other way around. That the cemetery wanted like to have a partner to maintain the space because they didn't have the need for such a big amount of space which they have in Berlin, and then they asked a different project, and we were also in our group. There was also other part of the cemetery which were not given to partner, but which are maintained with other partner. And there is, for example, at the Seestraße, I think it's something with it's it's like a biodiversity concept, and it's in cooperation with NABU, I think, which is a biodiversity association in Germany, and they had also like a small piece of the cemetery which they now take care of. And there is also a third one, but I don't remember right now which one it was, with another concept also. And it's actually the same cemetery administration than in der neue St. Jacobi Friedhof, where the Prinzessinnen-Garden collective are right now. It's like the same administration. And for the first year, we have like this contract where we were, now it's quite complicated because it's all very technical words in German, and I don't know how to say it in English, but we had to like build a garden with the participatory process, as a like the cemetery say us what we had to do, and then we apply and we say, okay, our concept would be to do this, this, and this, and then we had like
an open call to partners.
and then we have like this thing for 1 year, and we also get money from the cemetery, which the cemetery become from the Berlin Senate and the European Union in for a sustainability Berlin program, Bene, for the Berliner one. And then we have like a contract at the end of this 1 year cooperation. We get a contract for 5 years or 4, I'm not sure. But with the idea that it's renewed as at the end of the 5 years.
One more question for me. How do you manage to involve the neighbors, so like the communities around? Do you like put posters initially? I mean, the initial contact, how was it made?
The initial contact was quite hard because we begin in February 2020, so it was not a really good timing. For the first meeting, we had luck and could do it in person. And yes, we had like a lot of flyer. We also like write a lot of organization. Like you can contact the kindergarten, the school, the youth organization, the church. Put flyer on cafe and also on the door. And there was quite a lot of people who came here. And then it was only online, but also online quite a lot of people participate, like to say what they want to do. We have the problem that it's quite far away from everything. Like you all come from 2 different doors, but you have to walk like, I don't know, 10 minutes to get here, so it's like not visible from the public space. When we begin, there was an official entrance because the fence here was destroyed, so a lot of people came by here. Actually, it was like really, it was a shortcut to go, I don't know where, but people always like use this fence, and so we have also a lot of contact with the people walking by. Yet it's repaired, But for the beginning, it was quite nice.
Thank you.
Yes.
And who are the people who take part here? Is it white Germans with names like me? Or is it diverse as Veddinghg is? So I think it's usually hard to get something more diverse.
Yeah, it's quite. It's hard to have a more diverse participants, but there still are like few people who are coming here, which are really far from the neighborhood. I think what was interesting at the beginning that a lot of people come also from far away, from Berlin, but it was like typically young white academic person who found the project interesting and come, but they don't come regularly. And for the people who are regularly coming, it's mostly people of the neighborhood. And I think this year it's more mixed than the year before. The person who were first coming from the surrounding are the kids, because here there is also a lot of kids which are on the street the whole afternoon and don't know what they should do or don't do, and they were coming here and most of the time doing a few nonsense action, but it was nice that they come, and then we also try to make garden things or to have activity for them. And how we want like to reach more real neighbor is through other institutions, because we make the experience also in other gardens that it's really hard to reach the people individually, like but it's easier and better like to reach them through other associations. For example, through the school, we had I can show you later, but we had like a program to have free workshop for school and for kids, and through this kind of workshop it's easier to get diverse person, or like through other association, I don't know, language school or youth association, because then they already have a group of the real neighborhood and they can all come together here, and usually some of them happen to come again and then spread the possibility in their network. It's worked much better than to have flyer, for example, in many languages that nobody read, but like to get the people where they already are.
So, did you have any instructions for the people how they should take care of vegetables, the ground? They don't have any experience in gardening.
Yes, it's a good question, because it's really big, and I think there is really regularly like a communication problem, because we can't write everything. When we have like this on the Friday, there is always someone from the team, and we have a big garden book where we try to write everything, so that you have to know like what should be done or what don't.
Could you show us this book?
I'm afraid I don't have the key.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Maybe have electronic version, digital version of it.
To have it digitally? Maybe. No, we didn't have it digitally, and it's also like every year it's a question if we do the book on paper or if we do it digitally, and we really try very often to have like a mixed, or to have it also digitally, and it doesn't work really well, because most of the time people here, they don't have internet, and so then it's forgotten, because nobody is writing it down after the 5 hours shift. When they got home, it's all it's all lost. So I think And in ElisaBeet we have a lot of explanation written on the side. Like I think we have too much of them, but it's the only, it's one way that we have, like that we write things like, for example, don't put water on this plant because the plant doesn't want to be watered.
Yeah.
Like near the plant so that you see it when you're here. Yeah.
Could you tell us about the situation which was before you decide to make a garden? What am I mean? In our country, a lot of people have their own piece of ground. It doesn't mean that they live in a private house. We have houses called like a dacha, summer house. So if they have a free time, they would go there and doing work there. So other of them have parents who live in a village. So there are also a lot of work with the ground there. And now the situation will be changed because of war, because of internal displaced people who have nothing here, obviously. But still, I try to understand if you have something like this, or maybe people who live here have no possibility to work with ground. I know nothing about this, so I'm interested.
In Berlin there is a few people who have like an allotment garden. I think it's not really like what you said, because it's smaller and it's in the town, like it's kind of a lot of private garden all together, and you can have one and it's really cheap. But I think right now if you want to have one you have to wait around 10 years, because too much people want to get one and it's already overcrowded. So I think there is a lot of interest like to do some gardening somewhere else, because people are waiting and waiting to have their small part. I think it's also very different kind of activity, like to have a community garden or to have an allotment garden, because in an allotment garden you can do what you want, and in the community garden you have to talk to people, you have to organize yourself, and I don't think there is more rules, but yeah, the community part is obviously bigger, and there is also people who have both. Like in this garden, in the people who are regularly taking care of the garden, there is at least 2, I think, or 3 that I know that have also an allotment garden. So they obviously do a lot of gardening, but they do both, and I think it's go in both directions. It's quite interesting, like it's 2 different movements, and they still are really separated, the allotment and the community garden, and people didn't know each other or are very different. But in the last year there was, for example, for one university, some research program like how to open the allotment garden to more community, or how the community garden should better understand the position of the allotment garden, and trying like to bring them together, because both of them are urban garden and both of them are really important for the city in different ways. So there is a lot of work put into it, like to combine it, or like to have a better understanding of the 2 gardens. And it's quite interesting how it evolves. I think it would also be like very different when more and more new people are getting the allotment garden, because I think the allotment garden you have to wait really long to get one. So when you have one, most of the time you keep it until you die, and so a lot of people are quite old in this allotment garden, and in the community garden people are quite young, and so it will probably also be like a difference in 10 or 20 years when it's all more mixed. Yeah. And yeah.
But do you have some problems with stealing harvest and with damaging something?
Yes. Stealing harvest we can't really know because we didn't like here we didn't check if there is one or more or one less tomato, so we didn't see, and I think there was never like that all of the one row was completely steel. It's also for us because it's quite big, so I think if you go there and harvest like also a big basket, nobody will notice because it's too big here. But in our other garden we had like where people have like a really dedicated place for themselves, then they notice if the one tomato was not there anymore. And that we did have that. Here we have quite a lot of problem the first years with our with this one, and yes, with the greenhouse. It was cut really regularly, so that the cold also
For what they were?
yeah, I think it was like, I don't know, it's like vandalism. The question
So
is,
you have also
is
the
always
problems
one.
like this here.
Yeah, but I think right now it's become really less than at the beginning, and I think it's also because people of the neighborhood know the project and know that it's also their project or their place, that they could use it, and so I think it's not attractive anymore, or I don't know, perhaps they also cut it enough that it's not fun anymore.
And if it's like just common territory for all people, or just for example one family have a little plot of one, I don't know, ground, and they put something that what they want, or it's just more about community?
No, it's all shared.
Want some flowers?
Yeah, so
Edible, yeah.
Cappuccino cresta.
Thank you.
so yes, the whole garden is shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Methods to grow your vegetables, organic technology. So do you use any pesticides?
You want this one? What's that?
Pesticide. I think it was also forbidden. Yes, in our concept. Like we are not officially biological because it's really, I think it's really complicated and also really expensive to be an official biological garden, but we didn't use pesticide, we didn't use chemical, and we also used for the seed, we only use, or we try to use regional seed for
It's like
the,
rucola, actually, like
for
the
the flowers,
rucola
and
state.
for the vegetable we use also only seeds that you can grow the next years, like not this hybrid one that you don't use anymore.
That's very important.
And we also harvest the seed ourselves and plant it again, like for.
And I have a question. Here I think it's okay, but if the garden is situated in the city center, for example, do you have any problem of contamination, heavy metals from the emissions from the cars? Did you analyze this situation?
And before we first garden there, we analyze the soil, and we also do it like it was also done in other. Like for the project, it was also done in other cemetery, and there was one which is quite near of the former airport. Tegel, and there, for example, it would not be possible to have soil, to have vegetable that you want to eat in the soil, because there was a lot of benzene in the soil, because it was the starting point of the airport, so it was not possible. But here the soil was okay for growing vegetable, and it's also because here it was a cemetery, and cemetery are really old, and here there was never something else, so it wasn't contaminated from other part. And yes, I mean the other.
At the beginning you said you have plastic flowers, yeah?
Yeah, on the compost there was a lot of plastic, so we have to
But do
remove
people
it.
still bring to the cemetery plastic flowers?
Yeah, I think so.
Not only producing for Soviet countries, post-Soviet countries.
Yeah. Actually I don't think so, because in France, in the cemetery, there is also a lot of plastic flowers. So you already asked, we don't use chemical there, but we do also more than not using chemical, but we have like big place that are only like for biodiversity. Here you see there is like a small wall, so you are not allowed to go on the other side, and it's for the insects. It's also why there is a lot of wood which is here, and regional flowers that we had there. And if you look around, there is quite a lot of these places that we keep only for the biodiversity. And it was also really important because I told you it was the cooperation with the administration is really great and quite easy, but the official, like the district, had to say something about our project, because here it's a cemetery, and cemetery are protected, like the landscape of the cemetery is protected as a landscape, and obviously it doesn't look like exactly a cemetery here. So we had to have a plan and to apply, and had quite a lot of negotiation with the nature protection administration. What we are doing is good or bad, and we had like to make a whole map of our whole project with how it was before. So landscape planners come there and write everything down what was here. For example, here there was nothing, it was only soil and plastic. But there was like this wood, which is a really important habitat for insects. Or with the wall here there was a lot also of different plants, and then we had part that wasn't allowed to change. Also, for example, the wood, it was not allowed to remove the wood and to say, okay, the garden go this until the wall, and different other area was protected, and we had to show that if we do something somewhere that makes the biodiversity less, then we have to compensate it somewhere else on the garden surface. And what we did mostly in the faraway place, on the place called Wild Garden, it's only like activity for the biodiversity and not for people. Okay, so now you are in the other part of the garden. We were in the gardening part, and here it's the recreational area, and it's go until the supermarket, as I said. We are still developing this area. What's important is that here it's actually was a graveyard, but there is no. There is, I think, in this area there is no more grave, and on the other side there is 12, I think. I don't remember the exact number. And the first one is here. I think you can see it. There are also red flowers. And what we do here is more like that the neighborhood could use the cemetery also like as a kind of normal green area or park for recreational purpose. In this district there is really few green spaces if you don't count the cemetery. And the cemetery is quite huge, and so it's why it's also a really good opportunity to use the space so that people can have green space for them and not only walls and grey.
And it's a very poor neighborhood. I mean,
And it's
that's
also
something you
really
need to
poor.
say. It's a very poor neighborhood.
Yeah, there is in Berlin there is like this Umweltatlas, which is kind of a map with different kind of information and information how many green you have, how if your neighborhood is really noisy or if it's polluted or if it has other good or bad environmental factors. And actually here is a quite bad neighborhood. It has not enough green space. It's quite polluted because there was the former airport, and there is quite a lot of big street, and it's also quite loud, and it's also a place where there is a lot of former industry. So it's like if you have a look at the color, it's quite red here, and it's also a quite poor neighborhood. You can see it by, for example, this building here. Obviously, look in comparison. No, not this one, but the other one. And so yes, we want that this place is open for the neighborhood, like to spend time. And actually here, where there is the really big plants, it should become our marketplace, or like the place where we want to meet. But it's not developed now, because until I think this summer there was the last part of the compost wasn't not used, and yet it's used, so yet we can begin to do something. Here it's a quite regularly used space. It's our green classroom, and so when we have workshop with kids, or also like I don't know, like small other activities here, we can sit on the wood and have kind of small activities. What you see here, the 3 platforms, it's also to have a possibility to sit down, and also like for some people it could be not comfortable to sit on the ground. If you know, it was a former cemetery, so it was the idea that you can sit also above on something really physically existing, and not on the ground.
Not on the bones of people who died 50 years ago.
Nice.
Yes, and it's also then used, for example, for doing yoga. And I think one of the last really nice activities that take place here was for a woman who organized a Japanese tea ceremony, and there was quite a lot of people doing this ceremony on the free platform here, and it was quite, I only see the photos, but it looked really nice.
As a park zone, just look as a park zone, just in our country on a cemetery. It's not possible.
Yeah. And yes, also in the here we do like different project, and perhaps one I already told you about a little is one where we do workshops for kids, like so that they discover the urban nature. Because also in this neighborhood, it's like quite difficult to have contact to the nature, because you have to travel out of the city. It's expensive, it takes time, and most of the children don't have access to that. So we had a program where we could do free workshops for kids, so that they discover the nature. And for that, this place is really great, because it's kind of really nature and not only raised bed like in our community garden in the more urban area, where you can look at a vegetable but you have no really nature. And here you can discover different trees, you can also discover different birds or insects. You can do something with the soil, like it's more diverse and more natural. Yeah, you can, if you want, you can have a look. We have this information board. From this side there is not much, it's about insects, and we hope to have more information soon. And on the other side it's about birds. And yes, there was also, yeah, there was for 1 year, I think, also a rally here, so that you can like have small questions and go around and look for them. And perhaps you see also this, there is already five, I think, discovering thing. There is on the walls you can walk without shoe, and like experiment different
Like a
kinds
sensory
of,
part, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
different part,
Yeah.
different soil.
Mhm.
So we try like to make it here, that people can discover nature and yeah, improve their environmental also knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Can this place be used for other activities? So can it be like used for some workshops or like poetry readings, and how you manage it? Is it for free, or you like people pay some fees, or?
It is possible to use it. It's also what we want, because the organization team is a really small team, and we don't want to do it all alone, but it's for the neighborhood. So if neighbor want to do something, they are allowed to do it here. There are a few rules, because it's still a cemetery, so you can't do like kind of really loud music or yeah.
Barbecue probably also
Barbecue
not
is
permitted.
also not permitted. And also from our side, we don't want, like, you can't organize here, I don't know, some publicity events for, I don't know, some big company. It's also not possible to do that, but for a lot of different things you can use here, and we ask for a small contribution, that we maintain the place and that people can use the infrastructure, like the water, the toilets, we have benches, table, yeah, and it's all only like a small fees.
And when it's raining,
Then
you don't have tents or stuff?
no.
Okay.
You can hide in the greenhouse,
Oh.
so it's hot and not rainy. Yeah, but we don't have a space. It's also have something to do that of this landscape protection that I told you. So we can't really have
Yeah, but okay.
big infrastructure here.
But rain is no problem. I mean, rain is a problem in Berlin because there is no rain anymore. But these times when you had a week of non-stop rain, they are simply gone. There is a big deficit of rain, and now it's rain showers of half an hour with a lot of water, and then it's dry again, and maybe 10 minutes later there's another rain shower. But there isn't anymore this like 3-day rain non-stop. So it's
Okay.
our bed was also quite safe that we could have all meetings outside during the week, and it worked out. So
What was the weather in September in Berlin?
there was some rainy periods, but there were also 3 weeks without rain, if I remember correctly. No, there's really not much rain left. It's a big problem, and you see some of the trees here where I don't know about these individual trees, but I was 6 weeks not in Germany, and when I came back, trees had only half of their leaves left because they threw off their leaves because of drought.
Yeah, they do that on.
It was
already
really
in
obvious. I came back in late August, and trees were half empty because they had to save their lives, and it's a big problem.
Do you apply for funding projects? Because I don't think the money people donate cover all the costs.
No, yeah, also most of the projects are funded projects. For example, these kids workshops, they was funded by the postcode lottery.
Yeah, we
So
heard
most-
about it already. We heard
Yeah.
about it when we went to this workshop and bike repair workshop, and they have also like this kind of funding there. Yes.
So most of the projects that we have are separated program for which we are applying for funding.